The Great Western Railway is world famous for many things, including their impressive selection of 460 tender engines and their large array of 060 Pannier Tank engines. These had a noticeable gap between the water tanks and frames, thus allowing the crew easy access to oil the inside cylinders and valve gear. Perhaps the most famous Pannier Tank design was the 5700 class of 1929, but today I wanted to discuss something a little more obscure. This is the history of the 5400 class of 1930, made up entirely of footage recorded in Dovetail Games' Train Simulator. The 5400's design is credited to Charles Collett, but it was largely derived from George Armstrong's 2021 class of 1897, itself a derivative of the 850 class of 1874. In any case, the 5400s were built at the famous Swindon Works in the 1930s. Initially, a batch of 20 locomotives was built between 1930 and 1932, followed by another batch of 5 locomotives in 1935. Curiously, the original locomotive numbered 5400 was a prototype rebuilt from 2021 class number 2062, but that was soon scrapped and replaced by a new locomotive that reused the 5400 number. Collett also designed and introduced the similar-looking 6400 and 7400 classes, whose only real differences from the 5400s were the use of slightly smaller driving wheels, and, in the case of the 7400s, a higher boiler pressure as well, but no push-pull control equipment. Like the later 6400 class, the 5400s were intended for use on branch line passenger trains, and fitted with the control equipment to make them compatible with auto coaches. In other words, the 5400s were auto-fitted. Initially, these engines were outshopped in a green livery with Great Western lettering on the water tanks. This was later replaced by the so-called shirt button logo between 1934 and 1942, then GWR lettering from 1942 until nationalisation in 1948. There was also this short-lived transitional livery, with British Railways lettering written in the GWR serif font. I'm a bit partial to the transitional liveries myself, but each to their own. These engines were numbered from 5400 to 5424, and what you're seeing in the foreground are my favourite members of the class, namely 5402, 5419, and 5405. The former two because they share numbers with 2 of KiwiRail's DXC class diesel locomotives, and the latter one because he appears in the Dark Railway series under the name Goose. Incidentally, the 5400's cab design was later used on the 8750 class of 1933, although those engines were essentially just modified variants of the 5700 class. As for some technical specifications, the 5400s measured 9.47 metres long, over buffers, by 2.616 metres wide and 3.815 metres tall. Their driving wheel diameter was 1.575 metres, which, combined with a boiler pressure of 165 psi, resulted in a tractive effort of 65.7 kilonewtons. The fuel capacity was 3.3 metric tons of coal and 5,000 litres of water, while the boiler type was the GWR standard number 21, and the cylinders measured 419 by 610 millimeters. As for why I only used metric units when reading out the specifications, it's because I'm simply not familiar with imperial units. Incidentally, the country I'm from doesn't use imperial units at all. When they were in service, the 5400s could be seen on local and branch line services throughout the GWR network. All 25 of them survived World War II and became part of British Railways fleet in 1948. Throughout their lives, members of this class were allocated to sheds in places such as Southall, Oxford, Banbury, Yeovil Town, Gloucester, Oswestry, and Landor near Swansea. The latter two sheds were in Wales, while the other examples were all in England. As diesel locomotives and railcars came on the scene, withdrawals of the 5400 class began in February 1957, with the first one to go being 5401 from Oswestry. The final survivors were 5410 and 5420, from Westbury and Lydney sheds respectively. These two kept going until October 1963, but sadly, all members of this class were scrapped. As for the 6400 class, 3 of them have survived into preservation, while the 7400 class all suffered the same fate as the 5400. Although the real 5400s no longer exist, we can still see them in Train Simulator. This is because a developer called Victory Works has modelled the class, and released them in January 2019 as part of a comprehensive Pannier Tank add-on. The pack also includes the 5700, 6400, 7400, and 8750 classes. And on the subject of Pannier Tanks, Victory Works has subsequently modelled the 1500 and 9400 classes for TS as well. These two were released for the game in 2024, with the 1500 following around 4 months behind the 9400. Incidentally, I've been seeing the 9400 in a different light after realising that she's essentially just a tank engine version of the 2251 class 060 tender engine. It's worth mentioning that, although the Pannier Tank pack of 2019 comes with its own auto coaches, the 5400 class is also compatible with the earlier auto coach models that come with Victory Works' 1400 class add-on of October 2014. I'm glad this is the case because none of the auto coaches included with the Panniers are actually in GWR liveries. As far as I know, no manufacturer has ever produced 00 scale ready-to-run models of the 5400 class. The nearest thing we've got to a 5400 in ready-to-run form is the 6400, with those models being produced by Bachmann branch line. And that brings us to the end of our look at the Great Western Railway 5400 class 060 Pannier Tanks. I hope you've at least found this video interesting, and feel free to watch my previous videos about GWR locomotives, such as the steam rail motor and Cathedral class 462, as well as the other content on my channel. I do a lot more than just the Train Simulator reviews. In any case, and to quote Heel vs Babyface, I'll see you in the next video. You take care.